Hi everybody and welcome back to Kevin's Upfront Opinion today. So today what I thought I'd speak about is Rachel Reeves, because Rachel Reeves has been off to the IMF, probably begging for a bit of money, wouldn't be surprised, but basically saying, according to the BBC, and I'll read this, it says the Chancellor says Brexit deal caused long-term damage to the economy. Rachel Reeves chose to stress the long-term damage done to the UK economy by the 2020 Brexit deal in her remarks to a key international economic committee at the International Monetary Fund. Okay, so question is she correct? And if she is correct, was this avoidable or was this always going to happen? Okay, now the way I look at it is, doesn't matter who would have been in power. If you had had Nigel Farage and all his mates and everything in charge, or business, this was always going to happen. I've always had this view, and I voted for Brexit. I'm not going to try and pretend that I didn't. When we had the vote, I voted for Brexit. I was on the edge. I didn't really know which way to go. Okay, I've spoken about this in the past. In a way, when I did vote, okay, from a personal point of view, I voted for Brexit. From a business point of view, because I've worked in business on and off for the best part of 20 years, I felt it was better being a part of the European bloc at the end of the day. It made things easier. So I was always on the edge. I didn't know which way to go. And I spoke to a few people. But at the end of the day, I did vote for Brexit. But I always felt that everything that was being said, whether you looked at the vote to leave or the vote to remain, they were all lying through their teeth. None of them were telling the truth, because none of them actually knew what was going to happen, because nobody had done anything like this before. No country had ever done it. But I always felt that we were going to suffer. No two ways about it. I said this to people. I remember having a chat with editor of a newspaper that I used to work on. Was never a journalist. I've never been a journalist, to be honest. I'm not going to try and pretend that I am. I dealt with all this social media and the website and everything, getting it out to people. And I remember discussing with him, and I said, look, this is going to be bad. If we leave, this is going to be fundamentally bad, and it's going to be painful. Now, I know there are going to be those of you out there that are going to say, yeah, but we've had COVID, businesses got closed down. And that's all true. There's no hiding from that. But how many years ago did COVID happen? And no matter what your belief is, and no matter what side of the argument you're on, you've got to be a realist. You've got to be realistic at the end of the day. Because when you had people like Nigel Farage saying, yeah, but you've got a massive big market in America. That may be the case, but how far away is America? And talking about parts of our union, the likes of Australia and New Zealand and countries in Africa and, the Caribbean and everything. How far away are they? When we've got this big market, part of a bloc that we've been a member of, which is our biggest trading bloc, okay, which is just across the English Channel, not far from where I live. I live in Lyon-Solent. France isn't that far away from me, okay? So the reality is, I always felt this was fundamentally going to happen. Now, when Brexit happened, I was always in favour, and I did say this to somebody, and I got a lot of aggro for it as well. I said, I wouldn't be completely against if we were paying to be part of the single market still. Because I felt if we were doing something like that, it might, I'm not saying it would, but it might save our asses, rather than going down the route of trying to create trade deals with lots of countries around the world, which has never really happened. It's happened to a degree, but also hasn't helped. But there was no plan in place. There was no plan in place that if we did leave, because let's not hide from it, I didn't expect Brexit to get voted through. I was expecting Remain to go. You know, when I woke up in the morning and saw that there'd been, what was it, something like 50 point whatever it was, voted to leave, I was flabbergasted. Didn't expect it all. Thought it was going to be a whitewash with people voting to Remain. That's what I personally felt. So, this is one, oh God, I hate to say this, I really do, being a Conservative voter as well, but I actually think Rachel Reeves is correct. And unless you do something to do with the EU, fundamentally, and I don't think Labour or even the Conservatives would have the balls to do it, and of course Reform wouldn't, I fundamentally think that you would have to do something to have like a kind of step in with the EU, and I hate to say that, because otherwise I can see this country struggling for a long time to come. Because if you look at business, you know, at the end of the day, this all relies on business. You know, and when you've got big business, you know, classic one was Man United, what's his name? So Jim Radcliffe did an interview with, I think it was the Times on the podcast recently, and he was talking about the chemicals industry. And he basically said the chemicals industry in Europe, not just the UK, but in Europe, is dead. You know, they're funding the chemicals industry in the UK, I think it's about 3 or 4 plants, at a loss every single year. And the fundamental reason is costs. And it's not to do with wages, obviously wages don't help, but, you know, it's energy. You know, energy prices are absolutely killing it. But you can go and make a lot of money in China, in the chemicals industry, as he said in his interview. And you can make a lot of money in America. Can't make it in the UK. You know, so unless they do fundamental things to reduce costs, so it's attractive for businesses to be in the UK. When I say businesses, I mean big businesses, and help out small to medium enterprises as well, whether that's a case of doing something to do with national insurance or corporation tax or any of these taxes, but make it difficult at the moment. In my view, they're not helping themselves, the government, as they are at the moment. And unfortunately, as difficult as this is to say, Rachel Reeves is correct that Brexit has harmed the UK economy massively. So, what I'm going to say for now is let me know what you think, and don't just go on this bandwagon of I support Brexit, I voted for Brexit, so I got to write something which is pro-Brexit. Try and actually be honest with what you actually think. So let us know in the comments down below. Okay, obviously if you've enjoyed the video, please do give us a like and share, and if you're new to the channel, please do give us a subscribe as well. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you again a bit later.